like to call to order the Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 meeting of the Edina Park and Rec Commission. Janet, could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Osborne?
Here.
Commissioner Itis?
Here.
Commissioner Darlene?
Here.
Commissioner Good?
Here.
Commissioner McCormick?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Strother?
Here.
Commissioner McCauley?
Here.
Thank you. All right, we have in our packet a copy of our meeting agenda. Could I have a motion to approve our meeting agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor of our meeting agenda for this evening, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passed. Next up, approval of our meeting minutes for October 9th, 2018. They're in our packet. Could I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments, corrections on our meetings from last month? No? Everyone okay with them? All right. Moved and seconded. Can we have a vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed. Community comment. Do we have anyone that would like to make a community comment this evening? Yes.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carolyn Jackson, and I'm the chair of the Edina Energy and Environment Commission. I'm here in my personal capacity tonight, but in the spirit of inter-commission communications, I have the opportunity to dialogue a story to tell with you and a little bit about where we're going. So, as you know, the City of Edina has the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 30% by 2025. And we talk a lot in the Commission about what does this mean, how does the city play a role in that, and we always end up saying the city needs to lead by example. So, we had a perfect example come up, and I'm not going to reopen the Arden Park discussion, but it provides an example of what we're talking about. So in Arden Park, we're building a new warming house. The existing warming house, and staff put together some numbers for me, so these are estimates, but the existing warming house spends about $1,700 a year in energy costs. And the new warming house will cost about $2,400. So you can see that's quite a bit of an increase. If we're going to reduce greenhouse gases, that means we have to reduce energy use. And the city needs to lead by example. And so what we're proposing is thinking about sustainability on the front end of the decision-making process. So I know it's been a part, and I know that you guys worked very hard on the whole project, but we're requesting that when you begin the process, say, we have to build a new warming house. We have a goal of greenhouse gas reduction. What kind of a warming house can we build that will not add to our carbon footprint? So this is something, but the good news is that we in the Energy and Environment Commission are working on a green building policy. So you won't have to do this out of the blue. You won't have to make it out of whole cloth. We will give you some guidance if this becomes city policy on how to make decisions so that when we make decisions about new development or changes in city facilities, it will not increase our greenhouse gas footprint, our carbon footprint, and sustainability will be baked into the decision-making process. But I wanted to raise your attention to that issue, and thank you very much. So any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Member Miller, the recommendation that you talked about, does it assume just regular energy use? In other words, just the electrical grid as it is now, the gas system as it is now, or does it assume that or recommend any kind of alternative energy?
Well, our greenhouse gas emissions will drop as Xcel Energy changes their mix, but they're not going to go to zero carbon anytime in the near future, certainly not by 2025. So some of the reduction will be achieved through the work that Xcel is doing. So it's the entire community, so it's not just the city operations. So some of that is baked in, will happen without any actions on our part. But we're going to have to also take into effect. So, for instance, maybe you could have it even bigger and more well lit, but it's heated passively and you use solar energy. So it's not the footprint of the building, but the amount of energy that we are buying from CenterPoint and from Excel that would go into our greenhouse gas footprint.
Well, and that's what I mean, is would you provide recommendations or at least some kind of reference? So if they said, if you invested in solar energy or thermal energy for this building, it would cost this much on the front end, but it would achieve these savings and energy and greenhouse gas goals on the back end.
Right. And that's the goal of this greenhouse building, or this green building policy, so that, like I said, you don't have to sit and every time you make a decision, how are we going to do this? There'll be guidelines. And that's something that in our work plan for 2019, we will be presenting that to the city. So it's coming. We would love to have your support across the city and to spread the word about that as well. But just naturally occurring, well, not naturally occurring, but outside forces will reduce our greenhouse gas footprint, but it will not be enough to reach our goal.
So clearly a topic that deserves deeper discussion. Thank you
Yes.
for bringing it to our attention.
Oh, you bet.
And thank you for your work chairing the Energy Commission.
I have one question, Carolyn, if you don't mind. When you look at this and creating these guidelines, because I'm just thinking right now about the park buildings. I mean, these buildings are 20 years old, 25? 40. Oh, 40 years old, okay. So, I mean, there was different uses back then as we go forward to what we use park buildings for now. So as you look at the guidelines you're going to set up, is that something they're going to take into consideration? That, it's not, I mean, the size of this building is almost twice what the current building is. But we're going to be using it for different things than what was designed for 40 years ago. It was for strictly a warming house for hockey. There's other things in the neighborhood we use it for. So how will that fit into the guidelines, which can simply almost be kind of numbers sometimes?
Well, we'll have design guidance on that. So yes, there's a change. Greenhouse gases, it doesn't matter where they come from, whether it comes from a car, whether it comes from a building, whether it comes from a power plant or from a mower, it all adds up the same. So the use is irrelevant to make our greenhouse gases goals. But what the green building policy will help us do is we're going to be building a new building. Here's the existing carbon footprint. How can we stay within that or reduce it and meet our needs at the same time for the use of the building? So there's a little jujitsu involved with this. But St. Paul has a green building policy that they've instituted. It's very flexible and provides a lot of alternatives for people. So hopefully that will help as well. But if we're going to make this goal, we're going to have some hard decisions along the way.
Sorry.
No, sorry, I'm going to cut this off.
Okay.
This is community comment. It
Yes.
sounds like this is something we could have an agenda item later on.
I
I would
was
love to have a
gonna say.
discussion. I
Okay.
just don't want to launch into
Absolutely,
it today.
yeah.
So, but
Okay, all
thank you
right.
for bringing it to
Yes,
the
thank you.
commission. Yep, thanks. Others? Any other community comments this evening? I know it. Like to see it. Like to see the active involvement. Thanks for being here. All right, with that, we'll move to next reports and recommendations. First up, Susan, I believe, are you leading us through discussion on 2019 Parks and Recreation Department fees?
So in your commission packet tonight, you have received a copy of the proposed 2019 Parks and Recreation Department fees. We're asking the commission to review and recommend the fees. Next steps will be to have these on the City Council agenda at the first December meeting for final approval. So there's a lot of fees that are included, and we've had this conversation at previous meetings, and I think what we really want to communicate to the commission is really the thought that goes into making these recommendations. Our fees are set at a level that accomplishes the following. We try to keep programs and activities affordable and accessible to residents. We go by the user-based fee philosophy. We try to cover the costs associated with the activity or facility whenever possible, and try to create an opportunity for all residents to participate in basic recreation programs, regardless of their ability to pay. We take into account and look at fees that are charged at our neighboring communities and comparable facilities. We look at our operating budget and what our cost recovery targets are. In setting program fees, we look at the program classifications and program life cycles. We do a thorough review of fee history and take into account any feedback that we've received from our customers. And overall, there's really no significant increases that we're recommending for 2019. So this past year, staff developed a pair of cost recovery calculations, in part to measure the financial performance of our enterprise facilities. Those new cost recovery calculations are total cost, which represents the total ongoing cost of each facility, and then our variable cost, which is the facility's management of budget, revenue, and costs. The difference between the two, the variable cost excludes depreciation, central services, and any city billed utility costs. And in previous meetings, we've asked all of our Parks and Recreation general managers and recreation supervisors to be at the meeting and give just a brief overview of their fees and kind of what went into those fees. And based on some feedback from Commissioners Good and Commissioners Alleen, just made a few changes this year. And you can see we've asked Joe Aboud and Patty McGrath to be here at the meeting. Joe will talk about the golf season. He'll give a brief recap of the 2018 season and then talk a little bit about the proposed fees for 2019. And Patty will do the same for the Aquatic Center. And then moving forward into next year, we'll ask staff, our general managers from our different enterprise facilities and our recreation staff to come in, kind of give a recap of their primary season as that ends. So for example, maybe at the March meeting or the April meeting, we would ask Chad Eichens, the general manager at our Braemar Ice Arena and Braemar Field to give a brief recap. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe and talk about all the great things that happened in 2019 and upcoming in 2018 and upcoming in 2018.
Alrighty, thank you very much. My name is Joe Aboud, and thank you for having me here tonight. Haven't been in front of you for a little while, so briefly go over some of the things that have been going on the golf course. There's not much going on at all from what you guys have seen probably, but no, there's a lot going on and we have a lot of good things happening, so we're pretty excited about it as staff at the golf course. So I want to take you through a few of the items and entertain some questions at the end. The championship golf course is complete with construction, so we're very excited about that. 100% of the grassing has been done. The greens right now, if you look at them, they are in perfect shape. There's a lot of people who would be excited to play on them right now. They're probably better than a lot of the golf courses that are open these days. So we're doing extremely well at the greens. The bunker system is completely in, and it's held up very well. We went with the better Billy bunker system, and it's going to save us a lot of time and labor and money going forward putting in that system. We've had some substantial rainfalls over the last few months, and these bunkers have held up extremely well, so we're very excited about that. So, and the only thing we're really doing now going into the wintertime is adding some fencing that's going around the maintenance facility. So that's the last that you're going to see of the construction. Construction is pretty much fully done. We have now entered the grow-in phase of the project. Jeff Mold, our superintendent, who started and we brought over from Edina, has been doing an extremely good job. So we're very happy to have him, and he's getting the golf course in really good shape right now. Right now, he's just kind of doing the last things to put the course to bed, and hopefully we'll have a mild winter with a snow cover that just stays there. Not a lot of freeze thaw, because that's the kind of conditions that'll get us in trouble going in next year. But hopefully we're not going to see any of that. Over the past few weeks, we recently got rated by the MGA, so we have that process going for us going. We're in the process of doing scorecards and yardage books. And we're also developing an app for the golf course right now. So it's going to be a free app that everybody can get, which will have GPS yardage on the app. So it's something that'll be a very good amenity for our customers. And then the last thing, over the wintertime, we're going to start buying the course accessories and getting ready for a opening. The opening we are looking for is in mid-May of next year. The target date is May 15th. Hopefully we hit it with good weather going into the winter. Tentatively, what we're going to schedule is about 3 or 4 days of leading up events to the grand opening. So the grand opening will be on a Wednesday. We'll do a VIP tournament and media tournament for that day. Thursday, we'll go ahead and get all the leagues out there that have been waiting about 2 years to play the golf course. We've done some walkthroughs with them, and they're really excited to get out there and play. So that will happen on Thursday. Friday, I think we're going to do a pay-per event to get people out there to see the golf course. And then Saturday and Sunday of that week is going to be the grand opening, where the general public will be out there to play. So a lot of good things going on. A lot of preparations for the grand opening next year. A couple other events that we had just recently. We did have a $10,000 preview on hole number 13. We were able to get 144 people signed up within about 2 or 3 hours to play hole number 13 for the first time. So that event turned out very well. It was very cold that day and windy, and it was a tough golf shot, but a lot of people got up there. Commissioner Itis got up there and took a look at it. So it's a lot of good things with that, a lot of good feedback. So we're very excited to get that many people out there to see the golf course. And we did a little tour, took them up to the hole, then we did another tour around the other side of the golf course. So that worked out very well. Then we had some walking tours that were very successful. The one with Richard Mandel, we had to cap out because we had so many people signing up for that tour. Another cold day out there. It wasn't the best day to get people walking around, but there was a lot of people who still came. Probably still about 100 people still came to that event. So very good turnout and a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz going about the golf course. So it's going very well. The last thing I just wanted to bring up is, we had a $7.5 million budget for this entire project, and we are coming in well underneath that. So that's a good part about it. Even though we had a delay in the project, we are going to come in under budget for the total project. So we're excited about that. Financial results in 2018 have been very good. We are over $100,000 ahead of total revenue from where we were last year. That's primarily due to the dome last year in April. As you can remember, we had a late snowstorm that pretty much shut everybody else down except for our dome. So everybody was really excited to get inside and swing when there was still snow and their other golf courses couldn't open up. So that gave us a great kickstart for the year. So it was a good start. You'll be able to see in here that green fee revenue is a little bit down. That's because we were so long in the dome that we lost April outside. So we netted ahead being in the dome. So that was a good result for us. One of the good things that we saw and that was trending this year is the cart fees actually went up, our cart revenue. There was no increase in fees, but that is actually from a newer cart that the vendor let us use this year in preparation for getting our new fleet for next year. So that was a good outcome that we saw just based on, no increases, but a better cart meant more revenue for the golf course. So that was a good outcome. New fees for 2019, we went through the fee process actually last year to get ready for this year. Then we had the delay. So the fees went in front of the council, in front of the commission last year. But just want to kind of briefly go over the fact that we didn't make any really big increases to fees. The most any one greens fee went up was $7, and that was for a weekend non-patron card holder. So the rates pretty much stayed in the $4 to $6 range increase. We had consultants telling us we needed to be up around $70. We're going to only be around between 40 and 50. So we still are a very affordable golf course. We did take the opportunity last year to get our rates in line with where they should be. We did a competitive set of about 35 golf courses. We tried to align ourselves with the upper middle set. Just to give you an example, like a Keller golf course or a Bunker Hills. So that's where we aligned our rates with. So we did take an opportunity last year to get the rates to where they should be. But none of them went up more than $7, like I said. We did have a rate increase of $1 on the golf carts, but that was for the newer cart that we're going to have next year. We also put in fees this year for the courtyard. So those are fees that are set up for using the courtyard as a lane, basically. So we looked at Centennial Lakes and we looked at Brookview and how they did their fees for how they were doing lawn bowling or bocce or bags, and we kind of aligned it with that. So, and pretty much the other major increase, or not major, but different increase that we had this year is we did take our clubhouse fees to an hourly rate as opposed to half day that we were in the past, just to better align ourselves for the future. A lot of the rates that you would see that we kind of took out of there was because the restaurant operator now takes care of the Valerie room. So that's one thing that you're not going to see us charging for. It's the new vendor charging for. We did one thing we did do actually is we took down the fee for the player's card for the resident. That used to be $80 when we last sold that fee. Now we took it down to $75 for this year, just to give the resident a little bit of a bump down, and then we took the non-resident up to $100, which was at $90 before that. And then the resident's going to have another added benefit of access to the golf course. The fees, once you buy the player's card, are going to be the same, but the resident of Edina will get better access. They'll actually get a day more than everybody else to make their tee times. And we think that's going to be a huge benefit going forward because we know that our golf course is going to be in demand next year. So, and then we do have a short video for you guys to watch. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that are going on and how it's looking out there right now. Hole number one, great starting hole. Conditions out there are really good. Like I said, this golf course is in probably better shape. There's about 300 trees. Take some time for each trees to grow in, but they define the new borders. You'll see a good contrast of the native areas set aside for oak savanna with the turf that's coming in really well. This is a hole that used to flood every time it rained, and now we could get a 3-inch water event, and it's This video was shot by Twin Cities Golf, and it's on their website.
But not ours yet? How are we going to use it from a promotional perspective?
He gave us access to. We've linked it. We've sent it out as well.
Okay, good.
All right. With that, I'll
Looks
open it up
great.
to questions.
Questions for Joe? Rick?
Yeah, Joe, can you explain about the removal of the buckthorn up on 13 and how that's gone?
So if you've been to the golf course recently, you will see the top of the hill. From the clubhouse side, you will see a lot of clearing at the top of the hill. That is actually Council Member Brindle's husband, who has taken it upon himself to go up there and just clear all the buckthorn that he can. And he is single-handedly clearing the top of that hill. We are going to help with that. Now that we're putting the golf course to bed, we can do some buckthorn removal going into next year and have some staff help him out. But if you look there now, it was him doing it, and he's done an amazing job clearing that hill. And now when you're on top of 13, you'll be able to see out the driving range side and looking out 13.
You had mentioned that some consultants recommended the fee range to be in the $75 range, but then you said you equated it to other courses that you feel you're on par with. Where's that discrepancy?
I think the consultant was looking at the zip code and the demographics when he was doing it. He was also trying to compare us to like a Chaska course. Chaska, they look at it from a city perspective from a different way. They look at it as more of an amenity to the to the community, and they're willing to subsidize it over there. But they are paying more to play that golf course. They will do far less rounds than we will do.
Hey, Joe, you mentioned something about the bunkers, and we invested in some different technology. Or could you just describe what that was?
It's the Better Billy Bunker system. It's a system that they implemented over Hazeltine right before the Ryder Cup. So it is the system to get right now. A lot of the old systems would put in kind of a liner into the bunker to try and keep them intact. This new system, it starts with the drainage, then it will put in a polymer that is actually porous that you can get through, but you cannot get up. So there will be no contamination coming up from underneath, what happens in a lot of bunkers, and then the liners won't ever come up. So the system, after you put in the polymer, you put in an angular sand to go on top of that, and it is a special sand that's meant for this type of bunker system, and it will hold the bunker faces. So right now, we have not maintained the bunkers at all during the growing process because there's no reason to do that on a daily basis because it's kind of just a waste of labor at this point. But if you look at them, unmaintained, they're in a lot better shape than a lot of bunkers at regular golf courses. Even after a 3-inch rain, we don't have to go in there and push all the sand back up.
Okay, thanks.
Joe, the only question I had was I'm looking at the cost recovery targets that Susan said I think were new this year. Is that right, Susan, that you just calculated these? And so I noticed on the golf course one, Joe, it shows total cost recovery 100% target for this upcoming year versus 2 years ago when the course was last open at 47%. So I kind of look at that and say it's both a hope, but maybe also a challenge. You feel pretty confident that the demand that we're going to see allows us to say full in depreciation, everything else, we're going to get 100% cost recovery?
Well, I think in 16 we were actually a lot closer than that when the golf course was actually open.
The full year. 17, it was a partial.
17 was under construction the entire year, so that was I think the 47%. If you go back to 16,
okay, so 16 would be the last comparable.
It was within 50,000, or maybe it was 100,000 in 16. So it was far closer than 40%.
Good.
But with the golf course that we have, with the downsizing of the expenses that we've done, I think it's attainable. If we have a good weather year, we're going to be at 100%.
Good, thanks. Any other questions for Joe?
Well, yeah, league-wise, do you have leagues already signed up and ready to go next year? And how
So
many
out of the
and how many
18
days?
leagues that we left 2016 with, we're going to have 17 leagues back. Some of those leagues will be put together. We are in a process of helping consolidate some of the 18-hole ladies groups, which in turn will open us up to where we can do event business on Mondays and Fridays. So we did actually, it won't be 17 leagues, it'll probably be more like 12, but they are all there. One ladies group is just encompassing about 5 of those leagues, but all those leagues are coming back.
And out of that, what percentage of tee times does that consume in a typical week?
It's a large amount, especially with our evening tee times and the leagues that we have. We do get requests, weekly for new leagues to come out here and play. We are trying to balance that out because we do not want to downgrade the value of the player's card or the patron card. So we do leave some availability in there. But for the most part, we're pretty scheduled out, which as an operator, I love leagues.
Sure.
It's guaranteed revenue.
And then with the new field or lawn area, is that also going to have leagues? And is that going to go through the golf course, or is it going to go through the restaurant, or is it going to go through Parks and Rec?
So those were some of the courtyard fees that were proposed, but that will come through the golf shop. So we're going to kind of treat that as just like a tee time. So somebody can come in and sit and want this tee slot for half an hour is what it equates to. But we'll run that out of the golf shop. We've already had actually 2 weddings we had in October. So it was just a bonus. We weren't really planning on doing any event business this year, but we did have a couple of weddings just to start us out, and I think they turned out very well. So we'll program that out as much as we can where we're going to leave some time on weekends for outdoor ceremonies.
But no leagues on the lawn?
There will be leagues.
There will be.
Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll keep it more towards the center of the week. And then leave everything else for more event business and corporate events, different things like that.
Joe, I know last year we went through this, and I can't, if you could remind me, and I maybe haven't asked the same question, but going from 27 to 18, obviously we're going to limit the number of actual tee times we have. You talk about $40 to $50. Do we reserve the right to move that dollar amount up if we see that there's a huge gap because you take the equation of the number of tee times that we're losing plus competitive dollars compared to other golf courses in other communities?
I think the city always reserves that right based on what it's going to cost to maintain it going forward. But all the pro formas were done based on that lower fee. So if things hold true and expenses don't get out of line, we should be able to maintain this golf course at the fees that we proposed.
Mike?
And one last one. I noticed the golf dome, the difference between variable cost and total cost, as far as the target percentages, was really large. Do you know why that is? Is it depreciation on the new dome?
The depreciation on that dome.
On the new one? Okay.
Good. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, Patty, are you up next? You get to tell us about the next enterprise facility that's also at 100% recovery?
Wait, Joe didn't tell us where Commissioner Itis' ball landed on 13.
Yeah. Was he a winner?
I don't think it was in the green.
It was on mine.
It was tough conditions out there that day. It was. The wind was blowing and it was a little chilly.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, good evening. I'm Patty McGrath. I'm the general manager at the Edina Aquatic Center and Edinburgh Park. So here tonight to talk about the Aquatic Center, kind of give you a recap of our 2018 season, which was a kind of a milestone year for us at the Aquatic Center, and then also talk about the upcoming fees for 2019. I wanted to start by just giving you a visual of the two newest improvements at the Aquatic Center. You might recall our old play structure. It was 20 years old and it was failing due to just weather and chemicals and things like that. The new zero depth play structure on the left, that was completed in 2017. That is for kids 8 and under, and it's a very popular area at the Aquatic Center. And then the photo on the right, that shows the restoration of our 2 large water slides. That was completed prior to opening this year. The water slides were also 20 years old, and they were badly faded. The surface was not smooth, and so we really needed to do something with that. It was significantly less expensive to restore them than to replace them. Both of these amenities really modernized the look and feel of the Aquatic Center and have really kind of amped up the fun factor for us. These two pieces are kind of at opposite ends of the facility, and we've done a few other aesthetic things that also tie in some more of these bright colors, and it just really, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from our guests on that. The other thing that we've gotten feedback on is that these slides now are super visible from Highway 62. And so we're getting a lot of feedback like, what is going on over there? What is over there? And so our previous slides were kind of 2 different shades of blue. They kind of got lost in the trees. You can pretty much see these new slides kind of from if you're anywhere in the vicinity over there now. So we're really happy with how these 2 features have turned out, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback from our guests on them. Just to give you an update of our 2018 season. 2018 was an important year because it was our 60th anniversary of the Aquatic Center, and so our theme was a community treasure for 60 years. Because we're weather dependent, we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and just pick one day to have a celebration, so we spread it out over the course of a week and had really actually a great week. One of the highlights of that celebration was we had a naming contest for the new zero depth play structure. People got really excited about that. We got a lot of submissions. It turned out Lil Lagoon was the winner, and we used social media and in-person voting for that, and so we kind of had an unveiling of the new name at the end of that week. We had special events that also included log rolling demo, cannonball contest, a ducky grab, food specials, and bands, and so it was just really a festive week all the way around. Also, I mentioned the water slide restoration project that finished on time, and that was within budget. Whenever we're talking about the Aquatic Center and a successful season, we always have to talk about safety as our first priority. We actually just recently were acknowledged with an award for the Jeff Ellis Gold International Aquatic Safety Award. Ellis & Associates is the lifeguard training program that we use at the Aquatic Center. As part of that, they do 3 unannounced visits throughout the course of the summer. They come, they pay their daily admission, they come in, they videotape 10 lifeguards for 10 minutes at different points, then they announce themselves, and then there's also administrative and other operational components to the audit. And so we rated exceeds in all 3 of those audits, so we were recognized at that gold level. Just over the course of the summer, we also had 106 rescues. And so, thankfully, none of those were serious, but 63 of them were in the diving well. So if you think about the Aquatic Center and the diving well, that's a very busy spot for us. As far as staffing goes, we hired about 94 young people, teenagers and young adults. We had 30 guest service staff, 60 lifeguards, and 4 part-time managers. The total number of hours worked over the summer was a little over 23,000 hours at the Aquatic Center. And we can't talk about the Aquatic Center without thinking about the weather and the impact that it has for us out there. So over the course of the season, the average temperature was 81 degrees. We got off to a slow start. If you remember at the beginning of June, I know it seems like a long time ago now, but the very first weekend, in fact, the temperature, actually the very first weekend, we had temperatures that were 68, 72, and 75, and we didn't even open one day because it rained. So that impacted us. I'll talk a little bit about season pass sales on that opening weekend. But as we got to August, we came in with some steady days that the temperature was good and strung a bunch of good days together there. We did have to close 8 times over the course of the summer just due to weather. So mid-afternoon where we couldn't reopen just because of the forecast. We also had to close 8 times because there were problems with an accident in the pool. And so that's just for a shorter period of time. And so then as we look at attendance in just a second, our busiest day was on Friday, June 29th. Probably everybody remembers that day. It was about 97 degrees. The humidity was extremely high. On that day, we had 2,782 guests, and our revenue at the Aquatic Center was about $21,000 on that day. We'll talk here. We can look a little bit more at our attendance at season pass sales and revenue. You can see over the course of the last couple years that our daily admissions has remained pretty consistent. I thought it was important to also just show you what the group admissions are. I know sometimes we get feedback about the number of groups that we have or the number of people that come in groups. And so you can see what portion of our overall attendance that is. And then just our member check-ins. Those are people who have season passes and how frequently they check in. So that's kind of on the top left there. The season pass packages, we were down significantly this year, and we had been trending way ahead in preseason sales, way ahead. And so we were very excited about that. Then when the opening weekend came, that is usually a frenzy time for us. And with the weather the way that it was, we just did not see that on-site pass purchase. And the difference actually was about 300 less. And that was the difference that we had throughout the course of the summer. On the right-hand side, you can see just, those are our main revenue categories that we have over there. Concessions has been, 2016 was a down year, but 17 and 18 have been pretty consistent. The season pass packages, even though we were down in numbers, we had a fee increase, and that was up just slightly. Daily admissions have been strong. Our building rental, that is actually our swim clubs, Aquajets and Edina Swim Club, the rental fee that they pay to use the pool, as well as Edina Swim Club, what they pay for having swimming lessons. It's a contracted fee to us. And we had increased those fees last year as well. And then a couple smaller categories, but birthday rental and flow rider admissions. So you can see that's our total revenues there. I talked a little bit about that opening weekend. In 2017, we sold 370 passes at the Aquatic Center on the opening day, and this year we sold 109 passes. That one day of being closed really did hurt. So as we look ahead to the 2019 fees, we're not going to increase daily admission fees. They're competitively priced, and we think we had increased those last year. We think that that's in a good spot. Season pass fee increase is proposed at 10% to cover increased staff and operational costs. We continue to see minimum wage going up. We'd introduced our compensation plan last year. Our operational costs in general just continue to rise. So what does that mean in terms of each person? The season pass increase range for residents is from $550 per person to $675. Depends if you're the first person or the second person on the membership. And then for non-residents, it's $7 to $1.25 per person increase for non-residents. Important to remember that season pass holders enjoy unlimited use of the Flow Rider. They get a discount on Flow Rider lessons and a discount on birthday parties. And then, of course, the early bird purchase by April 30th is the one that provides the best value. That is a long-standing April 30th cutoff where the price changes there, and we will continue to promote that to everybody, as that's the best time to buy is before that time. So that is the information that I have for you, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Patty?
I have two. One, just looking at the numbers that you provided, it looks like we've had between 2017 to 2018 about a 3.5% increase in revenue, but we're increasing fees 10%. So I'm just wondering, with what overhead costs, are we just kind of flat in terms of year over year right now? And is there a plan because the increase might be just due to the increases we're taking in admissions and things like that. So are there plans to kind of grow that, or are we at capacity all the time outside of June 29th? Or what other opportunities do we have? And that leads into my second question, which I'd given to Ann recently, which is, have we looked at things like half-season passes? So like after a certain date, we don't even prorate it, but you can buy the season pass for whatever time is left as another opportunity, just because I know that activities in general run through end of June, beginning of July for some families, and then they have that extra time that would maybe be able to, use the pool for a family function.
Right. Well, to your first question, in terms of opportunities, I think that we do have some opportunities. One thing you might notice is that we did hear that people were unhappy about the number of groups that we were having, and so we have cut back on what our limit. We do have a limit with that, and so we've cut back on that. It was about 1,000 less this year than last year, so that's about $10,000, close to $10,000 right there. I think that there's a new position in the city that is helping us, Enterprise Facilities, working with marketing and social media, and I think we're going to have a much better presence there to help us kind of close that gap and grow. I think we do have some areas we can grow in. We have to kind of pick and choose those carefully, I would say, just because when we are the 11:30 to 3:30 is our prime time. So what could we do beyond outside of those hours to make some things more attractive? And then looking at another type of pass, I'm totally open to suggestions. There is a neighboring community that does the halfway, half pay, and then there is also. There was one other one. I can't think of what that one was right now. But we were also looking at, we didn't include it in here, but the possibility of just doing an August only pricing, because a lot of things are wrapping up, by the end of July, and maybe you've just been too busy to think about it. So that is something that we have discussed. We didn't put it into this, but we're certainly open to looking at that.
Other questions?
I have a quick question. I'm just curious in terms of the numbers of groups and then the numbers of season passes. I'm just curious if you feel like there is any inflation in the numbers or deflation in the numbers. There are a lot of people I know who have season passes so their kids can go with their groups. So I'm curious if this family has a season pass for their kids and then they are a part of, say, kids club and they go regularly. When those kids go, are they represented in the season pass or are they represented in the group pass? Because it's another body and it shows up as a group even though they're not. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes. Yep. It does depend on the group, but there are a couple that everybody in those groups of kids club, they all buy a season pass, so they come in as their own individual attendance. So it wasn't always like that. That has been a change that I think the daycare providers have done to make it easier for them. Everybody has their pass, but so they don't come in as a group that way. But we still look at those in terms of our daily count when we're seeing how many groups we're going to have.
So they're showing up as a daily admission versus the group admission, though?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought, but I want to make sure. So truly, even though the group looks like it's less, there is actually a lot more groups because it's a group of people who also own a pass.
Yep, and they have just purchased that pass just like anybody else. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I've got a couple, Patty. You noted that season passes, numbers of passes have been declining, but our revenue was up because we took a increase recently, and now you're recommending another 10% increase for next year. Who do you compare us with, and how will our season pass compare kind of across the market?
Yeah. So I always look at our closest surrounding communities, and then one that's in Egan that's just, it has more amenities like our facility does. So I look at St. Louis Park, I look at Bloomington and Richfield, and then Egan. And we compare most closely to Egan. We're a little bit higher on daily admission than St. Louis Park, Bloomington, and Richfield. On season passes, Bloomington is actually higher than we are, but we're most closely then to, again, Cascade Bay in Egan. So we will run, for a resident who purchases at the early bird time, the fee we're suggesting is $60. And so we can see that, the break-even point for that is to come about 7 times throughout the course of the season. I don't know what those other neighbors are going to do with their fees, if they're going to increase them, but based on what we looked at last year, we're in the neighborhood. We are higher, and we do have several more amenities than a couple of them.
Okay. And do you also track during the season % residents versus non-residents that are using the pool?
Not on daily admissions. We do not, because everybody just pays the same fee for that. I do know that of all of the season passes sold, 75% of those are Edina residents and 25% are non-residents.
Okay. And I noticed, if I did my math right, it looks like our non-resident pass is a 28% premium to resident passes. Does that sound right? So we are giving a nice break to Edina residents that are buying their pass.
Yep, that's always been in the structure to have it work out that way.
Okay, good.
Sorry, jumping off of Member Good's question. Of that 25%, do we have an idea of how close those people are located? So are they like mostly South Minneapolis, Richfield folks, or, I know that my wife and my son went out to Egan. They took an excursion to go try Egan, even though we belong to the Aquatic Center, and just because they want to try something else. And when you talk about marketing and those types of things, is there an opportunity there to go to a little bit farther out than maybe that 25% if my gut says is probably pretty close to where geographically. So do we have an opportunity to market outside of those to even further reach people that are a little bit farther away from the Aquatic Center?
Yes, absolutely, and that it will be part of our strategy going into this next season is to expand our reach. We've done some traditional things over the years that it does keep it pretty close to home, but we feel like we have opportunity a little further out to kind of share the good word about our facility.
Is that it?
Just a question on the strategy. You talk about increased costs, and then you say you're going to leave the daily rate the same, and then make the season passes more. So it sounds to me a little bit like your best customers are bearing the cost, and the variable customers are not getting an increase. Strategically thinking, did you guys talk about doing the opposite?
We certainly do look at that. I think right now at $10.70 for our daily admission, that is higher than everybody else in the market right now. And we kind of took the plunge first to crack the $10 mark. Other cities have now done that. Actually, Bloomington and Richfield are both at $10 each. And again, it's hard to compare because some include taxes, some do not, but that's there. We feel like the value is still definitely there for the season pass, and so We had been lagging behind in recent years in those increases, and especially with the wage increases and some of our chemical increases and things like that. So I feel like if we sell the same number of passes, season passes, at this new rate, that will get us to the budget amount for 2019.
Okay.
Good. All right, thank you, Patty. and
Thank you.
Congratulations on another good summer.
All right, thank you.
Susan, did you have anything else to add on these? Okay.
Oh, not unless there's any other questions.
So Matt, did you want
I just had a question for Susan. I'm assuming that you have a revenue goal overall for Park and Rec, and is that a number that we use when we start backing into some of these fee increases, right? So if you're looking at, if our revenue goal for the Park and Rec is just arbitrarily $100, right? And the golf course is going to provide $2 of those dollars. The Aquatic Center is going to provide $2 of those dollars. We have all these other programs that are going to get us the other $6. Does that also factor into when you start putting in the increases? Because, you're putting the burden on a new facility and 10% increases on the Aquatic Center, probably Edinburgh and those types of things. How does that work, or is that an offline conversation when you guys are doing this stuff?
No, I think all of that is taken into consideration. Our enterprise facilities, I don't want to say are isolated. We look at their fees, obviously, as it relates to the entire department, but they have kind of their own revenue goals, expense goals. And as far as the Parks and Recreation Department and our programming, we do take that into consideration. We look at all the different programs that we're offering, what our total budgeted amount is, and back it in. So, yes.
Well, does that mean, like, the enterprises have their, revenue to cost target? Do the programs or do the Park and Rec have kind of the same thing? Is the goal to be break even, to be slightly ahead, to be slightly behind, to subsidize? Where are we on the programs?
Yeah, so we classify our programs as essential, important, and value add, and that's how we base our programming fees. Mike, I don't remember the first. Can you repeat the first part of your question?
Well,
overall, some of our programs, we set that fee to make money, those value add. The programs that are essential or important, some of them we understand that there's a need in the community. We're the only provider, so we may look at losing some money for certain programs. But overall, we try to at least break even when setting those fees for our recreation programs.
Okay, so break even is essentially the goal.
Yeah, unless there's opportunities where we can bring in more.
Okay.
Thanks, Susan. So as a commission, we're being asked to review and recommend the fees and charges for the Park and Recreation Department. I'm going to step back a minute to just discuss why we're here again, because this came up on our effectiveness for this past year, right? And kind of a question of, okay, why are we doing all this again? We got pages and pages of fees, and we're not supposed to have financial oversight. And Ann and I did raise that in a discussion we had with City Manager Neal, and as I understand it, the issue is City Council still needs to have someone give some advice and insight on it, and so we're being asked to continue to look at this. It may change in the future, but at least for this year, it's back on our docket again for review and recommendation. We did attempt to slim the discussion down a little bit in two ways. One, by highlighting in the document where changes were being made, and second, by only having a couple of the facilities come up and discuss their programs and their fees, the ones that we felt would be really kind of most interesting to us and also most impactful. Okay, so that's how we got to where we are tonight. So with that, I could use a motion to recommend the fees and charges as they've been represented in our documents and discussion tonight.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussions from anyone? All in favor? Aye? Aye. Opposed? Passed. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Susan. All right, next up is a review of 2018 work plan updates. Okay. Much of what we've had in our work plan we've either addressed or a couple we've moved on to next year, carried forward. So I'll just kind of touch base on a couple. I think we only have one that maybe Member Miller has a tremendous insight and update for us on, John Philip Sousa. I was hopeful, but so first initiative. First initiative was Arden Park. We all know where that stands, and that one's moving forward. Second initiative was Weber Woods Master Plan. We dropped that during the year, so no further action was being made on that. Third initiative we had this past year was a study and report on field courts and rinks. We've continued that into 2019 as a recommendation in our work plan. Initiative number 4 was comprehensive plan, and we've basically completed our work on that, but are waiting for revised draft from the consultants. Initiative number 5 was the aforementioned John Philip Sousa band. Pause for any change in inputs that might be coming. Nothing further on that. Nothing further on that. All right, we might need to revisit how to wrap that one up. And then number 6 was one that we picked up mid-year, and that was to bring back discussion around alternative funding options to support future growth and development. And so we've continued that into 2019. So that kind of recaps our work plan items that we had for 2018. Any further insights, discussions on that? Member Miller?
Well, just to talk about that Sousa thing, it looked...
I knew you'd have something for us.
Yeah, because it was somebody else's ball that they were going to carry, and maybe we were going to get involved or not. So I don't even know if there's anything to wrap up, because I don't even know if it's in our court.
I actually have an update. Susan just passed on a quick update to me that the Arts and Culture Commission has put together a subcommittee to start working on that. So I believe that the plan, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the subcommittee will make a recommendation and the Parks and Rec Commission will review that recommendation. So they're working on it, or at least starting to think about working on it.
So it doesn't seem to me that it's a work plan item for us, if we're just going to review.
It is, because they've got 17 transition meetings they need you to attend.
Yes, send it right to Member Miller.
I only will work with the subcommittee.
All right, good. So that one at least is progressing. It just, as you say, not in our court or our field or our orchestra pit, whatever we want to call it in this case, right? Yes. All right, next. I'd mentioned last month's meeting, I owed the commission some feedback on our start, stop, and continue that we did in our last offsite. So that's included in your packet and organized and somewhat prioritized as I went through it and heard some of our other discussions. So again, we had to, just to recap a few of these at a high level, and we did note where we have some work already progressing. We had 12 items around start doing, things around time limits on our monthly agenda, and you'll see at most meetings when we come here, we've got some time expectations on the agenda in front of us. A theme and vision for the year ahead, we've got that on our agenda for this meeting, so we'll have some discussion around that. We did have some feedback, and just to note it here again on the 5th bullet point, for more complex discussions, we had a number of them with Arden Park, Braemar Park, et cetera. I'd like to see us have a little bit more clarity and flow on how we're handling questions and discussions, so I'll do my best to see when people have questions and comments they might want to make and recognize commissioners rather than feeling like we've got 2 or 3 of us cascading upon a presenter. What else did we have on that one? Oh, and the last one was provide some one-on-one coaching to new members, and we did that when our student commissioners came on this year. At least gave them a little bit of an insight what to expect and be ready for the bright lights and camera and exposure throughout the city. But we'll continue to do that as we get new members on as well. So we had about a dozen things on start doing. And I will also ask Ann if she would to help me monitor those as we go through the year and continue to try to capture those and make sure we weave those into our activities. 8, keep doing. And I think those were just reiterating some of the things that we already thought were going well. We heard a little bit on enterprise updates today. Continue to utilize the inputs of our student commissioners. So even though we might have you sometimes, mostly, almost all the time, seated at the end of the dais, we do value your inputs, and if we don't hear it, we'll make sure we try to draw you into the conversation. So hopefully that's not a problem for either of you. And we did have a note, and maybe we can start this at the beginning of next year, to re-engage connecting commissioners to kind of named park ownership. We established that maybe about a year ago, and we're trying to get some insights around making sure we were visiting the parks and bringing some reports back. And so it seems to be something we want to keep doing, so maybe we'll re-energize that at the beginning of next year. We only had a few things that came up on the stop doing list. One, ironically, being asked to approve annual program fees. So we tried. Didn't happen this year, but I think we had hopefully a better modified approach that we attempted this year. Second, to be noted, having more in-depth discussions without better understanding of a tide of funding on projects. And again, we don't control funding, but I think it's something that we said we felt a little bit constrained and sometimes frustrated around a lot of time spent and then not really having any clear vision of where money was going to come from. So as best we can, engage the city council in that, if not up front, closer to the first half of some of those, so that we don't feel like we put effort into something that gets parked and not touched again. And then the third was accessing cell phones during meetings. One, because they have an interrupting factor on the microphones, we've been told. And second, I'll relate my own personal story. I do try to go back and watch our commission meetings, which I know is one that everyone was also very excited that we were keeping and continuing to do on a regular basis. But I was somewhat surprised at the number of times I saw a number of us with our heads down. And I think that can be a negative perception to those that might be presenting to us as well. So do our best to monitor that as we go through the meeting. Comments, questions on these, thoughts? It makes sense? Capture what we talked about in our offsite? Okay, good. Next item, 2019 park theme, picking up on one of the things that we talked about wanting to do. I think it came up in our offsite meeting that it might be relevant and also beneficial for us if we spent some time focusing on a particular theme for the next year that would give some organization and maybe even some meaning to what we're trying to accomplish over the length of the year. So I'd ask each of you to kind of put some thought to that, and maybe I'll pause and allow others to share their thoughts on what might be a valuable or worthwhile theme for 2019.
I think when you look at the 9 Mile Creek and Three Rivers pathway and what we're talking about doing with the Braemar plan and some of the other, maybe with Fred Richards and stuff like that, I know in today's world connectivity seems to be mostly associated with technology, but might mean more of a opportunity for us as a park commission to have connectivity, being that all the things that we offer for our amenities are connected, or the goal is to try to create that connectivity, right, with the bike lanes and with like I said, Braemar and all those types of things. So that was an idea that I had, especially if the Braemar work plan stuff starts to bits and pieces come in front of us and we start considering some of those. So that was the idea that I had.
Thanks, Matt. Others? Julie.
Remind me, we don't have our work plan for next year finalized, though, correct?
We have a draft back
Okay.
that I can share. We didn't have it in our agenda, but I'll share a high level of it in kind of our commissioner comments, but it's not going to be approved. It will come up for approval the first meeting in December. Is that correct, Ann? So hopefully we'll have all of those confirmed, and then in our meeting next month, we can reassess where we need commissioners to serve.
Because I did wonder if it made sense to tie some of our theme to the work we're doing.
Yep.
Or the goal.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Bryn.
Well, for our theme this year, I wanted, and we heard in community comment earlier, to focus somewhat on sustainability of the parks, like preservation of ecosystems, making sure everything we build is environmentally friendly, maybe looking into adapting some of our current buildings to become more sustainable. And just from a youth perspective, it's really important to me to have our parks continue to function well and be sustainable for the years to come.
Okay, good, thanks.
I'd just like to add, I agree with what Commissioner Osborne and Dalian said, that just as a theme, just the interconnectedness of our commissions, with whether it be like our environmental footprint, working with the Energy Commission, or like connectedness with like the signage and bike paths between the parks and with the Transportation Commission. Just continue to work with those other commissions on that.
Good. Thanks, Aiden. Anyone else? Some of those that I had are echoing these as well. I also had connectivity, and when I thought about it even more, said even that just the term connections might make it a little broader. It could be through trails and wayfinding. It could be connections inside the community with other boards and commissions, even broadening it to the way we're trying to connect with alternative funding and bring more of that into Edina. So connections was one. And connecting with the residents, yep, across the community, yep. Fitness was another one that came to mind for me. We see that come up sometimes in the comprehensive plans. And what are we doing around programs and availability for parks to really promote fitness? And those were the two that were kind of on the top of mind. So maybe what we'll do is, Janet, if you could just capture these for us, and we'll hold it until we get more of a discussion next month on our finalized plan and see if there's a real tie into something that we've already got in our work plans. Okay? All right, thank you. Next one is really just informative, and as I was going through my own notes and reviewing activities and action items for the year, I started to jot down the different things that we'd been involved in or that we had accomplished during the year, and I thought it was at least from my perspective, worthwhile to note that in our own minutes and activities, as well as just to bring some recognition to all of us that have played a role in one or many of these different things during the year of 2018. So we've got a list of about a dozen things here. Yeah, you can read them on your own. I won't go through listing them all, but just wanted to say thank you to each of you for your engagement and involvement. I think most, if not all of these, have had successful progress, if not yet completion, but some of them have indeed been completed, and soon even the John Philip Sousa Band will be completed, and we can have a clean sweep. The goose management. If you missed the Edina goose management plan, that was one to go back and watch that video.
So Greg, I thought that Susan and that team on the signage, that they did a nice job with that.
Yep, absolutely. No, that should be on here too. Good point. Anything else that's missing that one of you spent a tremendous amount of time on? No? All right, thank you. Comments, Chair and Commissioner comments. Any comments from anyone this evening? Rick?
I have one. I got an email today from the American Society of Golf Course Architects. I think Ann was copied, as was Joe. And in 2018, this year, of course, there were 11 golf courses in the United States and Canada that received Design Excellent recognition. And that was for where they addressed unique design challenges. So our golf course happened to be one of those 11. And what was said in the email was, how can you revitalize an underperforming and outdated 27-hole golf course on environmentally sensitive property that many golfers dismissed and citizens saw as draining tax dollars? The solution was a new 18-hole golf course that preserved floodplain, increased wetlands, restored oak savanna, and provided a great strategic and playable challenge for all golfers. The new golf course has recaptured the golfing constituency with a layout that brought out the topographical features of the property to provide strategic challenge. The environmentally sensitive features of the site enhance that challenge and also gain support of the community. So that's a neat, thanks, Ann. And thank Joe.
Yeah, great recognition.
Yeah.
Sounds like some good promotional content material there as well.
And it was all public and private golf courses, so.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's.
Very neat.
And I think there'll probably be more coming in 2019.
I was going to say, it's nice to receive our first recognition before the course even opens.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It sounds so good, they're not going to let me on it, that's for sure. I'm going to start to tear it up. Corin?
I had one question/feedback, and that was around the Braemar Dome, not golf, but soccer sport dome. The question is there any plan or can there be any plan to look into any form of bleachers or seating inside of there? I first thought it was maybe the ground wasn't safe to use on it, but that you can bring chairs in there. I actually thought that you weren't supposed to, but you can. I actually told the person at the front desk, I don't think we're supposed to. And she said, nobody just called the supervisor and they said we can. I was like, oh, okay. But I have now been to several other domes across the cities, and a lot of them do have some form of bleachers that you can kind of move around. So I was just curious, as we're starting to have winter seasons and we're actually playing some winter league games in there for soccer, I wasn't sure if that's something that we could look into, or if could we even talk to like the soccer boards to maybe they could help fund it too.
I actually have a pretty quick and easy answer for that, and unfortunately, it is not allowed by our building code.
Oh, okay.
So we are not allowed to have any bleachers in there, and it's been a few years now. I believe that facility opened 2014, but I don't believe that you are allowed to have any chairs in there either.
I agree, that's what I thought, but they, you might want to communicate that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we will
but
definitely.
I think at the same time, though, from a ADA and compliance standpoint, I think that it's unfair that somebody, like my parents went and watched a game, and that's who they said they could bring a chair, and I was like, that's fine, because they probably couldn't have stood for an hour and a half and watched a game.
Sure.
So I don't think that's really fair either. So I think that we should have some form of option, even if it's cushier side around the side, if there's something just, I don't want to say cushiness to sit on, but I think it's unfair, and it's a disadvantage that there's absolutely no place to sit in there. So, and knowing that other domes in the Twin Cities have options and we don't. So,
And all of the domes are built under their own building officials and in a really wide variety of different situations too. Our dome has a lot of challenges strictly because it is wedged in there between the arena and the backyard rink, with accessibility by a road around it, but from a fire protection situation, it's a lot trickier than most domes. So you can't just look at our dome and compare it to the Maple Grove Dome because they're sitting in the middle of a field and, you know, they don't have any challenges with adjacent buildings. So that's why when you look at different domes, you do see a very wide variety of amenities. But we did the best that we could with the constraints that we have. But I absolutely understand your point. We made the same arguments as well.
Okay, any others? The only one I had to add then was just to give you a quick update, and as I noted, the work plan will be finalized in December, and then we'll get a closer look at it at our meeting. we had presented 6 initiatives. The city council's draft back to us kept 5 of those as recommendations on the work plan. They dropped Fred Richards to a parking lot, and then they added a few others, right? So they added 2 others, I believe it was. One that Julie had brought up at our meeting last month was review and comment on the race and equity policy statement that would be developed by city staff. So again, has to be developed, but then it'll be brought to us for some review and comment. And then the second was serve on a cross-commission committee to complete requirements for Edina to receive the AARP city designation. And again, in a partner with Community Health Commission, Human Rights and Relations Commission, Park and Recreation Commission, and Transportation Commission. So it'll be another one that will very likely, assuming these are all approved, will come up on our 2019 work plan. Eileen.
Greg, just to be clear, when you say they dropped Fred Richards to a parking lot, you mean they put it aside temporarily,
They put it aside temporarily.
We are not making Fred Richards into a parking lot.
That's right. They will not pave paradise.
I just want to be clear for the general public.
Thank you for that. Okay, Ann.
Thank you, Greg. I have a few updates for you. It's a busy time in our department. Some of you may have seen the communication campaign. I mentioned it last month. We're doing a communication campaign throughout the city on not letting your dogs run off leash and making sure that you pick up after them. So that's getting some positive feedback. The arena on the 3rd of November was the first day of operation for both the dome and the backyard rink. So it's fun to have those facilities back up and operational. We have a couple of exciting projects going on inside the arena. In the South Arena, we're doing a low E ceiling project. If you've noticed the ceiling inside the West Arena, we are doing that same low E ceiling on the South Arena. And we're also putting in LED lights, and both of those projects will be finished by the end of the week. And those are projects for sustainability and energy efficiency. So we're very excited to be partnering with Tara Brown from our sustainability department to help us determine which projects are most efficient and effective, and then also help with a little bit of funding for those as well. Let's see. We are short of staff in many of our enterprise operations. So again, if you know anyone looking for work, I always hear from everyone the number one job that people want to do is drive a Zamboni. We need Zamboni drivers. So, but we also need warming house attendants. We need concession staff. Look on our website, reach out. I'm sorry? Braemar Dome, yeah. If you know anyone or can help share the message, we'd really appreciate it, because we're really struggling to find staff at pretty much every single, at Centennial Lakes, pretty much every single one of our enterprise facilities is struggling to find staff right now.
Is the age variable depending on position?
You have to be 16 to have a job in the city at all.
Okay. I just wondered if it made sense to try and have our student commissioners try to figure out a way to advertise within the student newspaper or something like that.
We'd love it. Any help would be greatly appreciated.
I'm already a skate school assistant at the arena, and just verifying what Ann said, we really are short of staff. And and so I think any like social media or Facebook post or any next door neighborhood site especially might help with that. I know a lot of kids check that for babysitting posts and stuff like that. So if you would, what? Could you post it? Yeah, I definitely could. Just anything like that would help.
And can you drive a Zamboni?
Not yet.
Okay.
Speaking of like getting the word out in student newspapers, in our actual Edina High School newspaper, there was an article on the Parks Commission where they interviewed me, and I actually got a lot of comments like, "Wow, I didn't know that was a thing," and like kind of got the word out. And I actually have a connection, contact in Zephyrus that I can say, hey, city's looking for new people to hire and for the agencies, so.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brennan and Aiden. That would be greatly appreciated. We appreciate your efforts. Speaking of hiring, we're hiring around 55 seasonal staff for our warming house positions. Last year, we had over 22,000 skaters that we counted skating at our facilities. Our four most visited sites were Cornelia, Pamela, Countryside, and Weber Parks. And in the Parks and Recreation Department, we just wrapped up our Fall Adaptive Bowling League, and the winter season is going to begin again in January. We have our annual Glow Dodgeball Night at Braemar Field next Tuesday, the 20th, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And Skate with Santa is coming to the Braemar Arena on Saturday, December 15th. That's all I have this evening.
Thanks, Ann. I did have one other thing just to wrap us up. As all of you may be surprised to know, we had an election this past month. Well, that comes as a shock to many. Glad to have some things finished. But we did have a change on city council.
What happened to Sheila She-Shed?
That I don't know.
That's the commercial that got preempted for all the political ones.
So now that's back.
State Farm Sheila She-Shed, so I want to know what happened to it.
We've got it. We'll get a chance to see version 2 of that.
Yeah.
So we did have a change on our city council, so Council Member Stewart will be leaving, and I just wanted to take a moment to personally thank him as a chair of this commission for his time and passion and effort that he spent on our projects and our activities. And we'll be welcoming Ron Anderson as a new city council member, and look forward to getting to know him and working with him as well. And Council Member Stoughton will be staying on the council for another 4 years, so we'll get a chance to continue to work with him. So. A bit of a change in some of the people that advise us and direct us, so just wanted to make note of that as we close. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For adjourn. Thank you.